Now, hear the word of the Lord from Luke 8:26 through 39. So they arrived in the region of the Gerasenes, across the lake from Galilee. As Jesus was climbing out of the boat, a man who was possessed by demons came out to meet him. For a long time, he had been homeless and naked, living in the tombs outside the town. As soon as he saw Jesus, he shrieked and fell down in front of him. Then he screamed, "Why are you interfering with me, Jesus, Son of the Lord of the Most High God? Please, I beg you, don't torture me." For Jesus had already commanded the evil spirit to come out of him. This spirit had often taken control of the man. Even when he was placed under guard and put in chains and shackles, he simply broke them and rushed out into the wilderness, completely under the demon's power. Jesus demanded, "What is your name?" "Legion," he replied, for he was filled with many demons. The demons kept begging Jesus not to send them into the bottomless pit. There happened to be a large herd of pigs feeding on the hillside nearby, and the demons begged him to let them enter into the pigs, so Jesus gave them permission. Then the demons came out of the man and entered the pigs, and the entire herd plunged down the steep hillside into the lake and drowned. When the herdsmen saw it, they fled to the nearby town and the surrounding countryside, spreading the news as they ran. People rushed out to see what had happened. A crowd soon gathered around Jesus, and they saw the man who had been freed from the demons. He was sitting at Jesus' feet, fully clothed and perfectly sane, and they were all afraid. Then those who had seen what happened told the others how the demon-possessed man had been healed. And all the people in the region of the Gerasenes begged Jesus to go away and leave them alone, for a great wave of fear swept over them. So Jesus returned to the boat and left, crossing back to the other side of the lake. The man who had been freed from the demons begged to go with him, but Jesus sent him home, saying, "No, go back to your family and tell them everything God has done for you." So he went all through the town, proclaiming the great things Jesus had done for him. This is the word of the Lord.
You may be seated. Hello, River. Good morning, Sojourn. Peace be with you. Welcome. If you are a guest or if you're visiting with us, my name's Jonah, and I'm one of the pastors here at Sojourn. Thank you all so much for being here on beautiful baby dedication Mother's Day. Happy Mother's Day. Yeah, one time? That was okay. It was okay. You might be wondering, why would we do a passage on demon possession on Mother's Day? You're only wondering that if you ain't got kids. Amen? Amen. Sorry, that's just a little Mother's Day joke. Well, thanks be to God for the gift of life this morning. It's a real privilege seeing all these little ones. We had babies in the first service, more babies that are yet to be dedicated, more babies that are about to be born. So just really grateful to God for all of this life that He's bringing us. If you were here last week when we had Compassion International in, I'm just so encouraged. We had 54 people sign up to be sponsors for children. And some folks sponsored multiple children, so I'm not exactly sure how many children that represents, but those are lives that are fundamentally, materially changed. And so if you want to hear more about that, or if you're curious and picking up a sponsored child, you can stop by the Compassion booth on your way out. If you're new to our church and want to kind of get a sense of like what drives things here, you just got to know that we love life. We love life in all of its facets, and we prioritize health. We think health is more important than everything else, whether that's our physical health, whether that's our spiritual health, emotional health, relational health. And so for our church, this is just kind of a little bit of a heads up as the pace of things is going to shift for our church heading into the summer, which pace feels an almost un-American word at this point. We don't like talking about pace, but our church believes in the spiritual practice of slowness. And so we're going to be slowing down a bit coming into the summer. So what that means, basically, when you agree to volunteer here, you sign up for a trimester. That's a 4-month commitment to serve every Sunday. And then when those trimesters switch over, the people who've been serving for a long time, we force you to stop. We don't believe in life-term appointments here when, sometimes, you get stuck in kids ministry and you're like, I've been here for 37 years and I can't get out. So the number of people it takes to pull off what we do on a Sunday is there's just a lot of humans that are working to make our church the beautiful place that it is. And so we want to give some of our regular servants some downtime over the summer so that they can rest. So practically, Our Sojourn Kids discipleship classes, that's for kindergarten, that's nursery into 5th grade, that'll keep going as normal. Our student ministry, that's S2, that's going to pause for the summer. So that's our Sunday morning Bible study, which is happening right now. If you saw like the exodus of teenagers or the 5th graders and 6th, that's where they're going. And then the evening student events are going to be paused for the summer as well. There's a couple of student events planned throughout the summer where if you have a student, you'll be notified of that. And then we're going to be bringing them into the service. So what we need to be aware of is if you know that you're not one of the people that's like regularly carrying the 10-month load, and you feel that pull of like, man, I think this is a summer where I've got some bandwidth and I could share some of the load. Like we still want to make coffee for people, we still want to hold open doors for people, and we still want to hold babies for folks. And so there's still opportunities to serve over the summer. This is like a 0% guilt trip. You just need to know if that's you and you feel that like, ooh, I should do that. Then that's maybe an invitation for you from the Lord to pick that up over the summer. For the rest of us, though, there's going to be a lot more children in our services. The summer's a great time if you've got little ones to start practicing what is it like to have them in the service. I don't know if you know this, but eventually they are going to be in here or in rooms like this, and we want them to know what it's like and to experience the goodness of it, which means that we get to show them the kind of church they can become, which means we sing loud, which means we greet each other warmly, we're engaged and we participate in the service. If you care about our faith being passed on, this is just wild to me, but the studies that people do on this keep confirming it. The best predictor of a child's faith enduring into adulthood, the number one is mom and dad's faith. It's not Pastor Stephen's faith, or it's not the S2 leader's faith. It's mom and dad's faith. That's the biggest impact on a kid's life. And then the second is going to be the presence of adults in their lives, the presence of Christian faithful adults in their lives. So when students are here, if you're the kind of person that knows you get fussy when it's loud or distracting, just receive that as these are the signs of life. And this is an opportunity for us to show these kids what faithful Christian living looks like. So as you see them more and more in the services over the summer, we want to welcome them warmly and encourage them. And also, if you've been serving for a while, take a break, man. Slow down, rest up. These kinds of rhythms that we have, welcoming the kids in, slowing down, these are all in pursuit of wholeness, of health, of sustainable lives. And that's not just like some kind of cliche, trendy thing to do. We believe that slowness of spirit is necessary to encounter the presence of Christ. So if you want to say, what are you guys really doing as a church? We are trying to get into the presence of the living God. Our doctrine tells us he's with us always by faith in Christ. And we want to experience that. We want to know. This is what this whole series, Luke chapter 4 through 9, has been about. It's called Power and Presence. That's why it's up there. What happens when we encounter the power of Jesus in the presence of Jesus? And fundamentally, what we have seen in all of these chapters and what we are trying to pursue as a church is when you get in the presence of Jesus and experience his power, you will be healed. You'll be healed. And so we talk about words like salvation, and we think of that as like your kind of eternal get out of jail free card, which like, boy, I'm excited about heaven, right? Eternity in paradise sounds great, but the closest English equivalent we have to the Bible's concept of salvation is healing, or you might even think about it as wholeness. So in Luke chapter 8, we get these rapid fire stories of healing. And it's trying to answer for us again what happens in the power and presence of Jesus. So in chapter 8, you'll see Jesus, he heals nature. Right before this reading, he calms a storm on the Sea of Galilee. He heals bodies. He heals spiritual oppression. After this, we'll see he even heals death. If you read this chapter and you soak in it, you're going to start asking yourself questions like, what can't Jesus heal? What is he unable to address? And you'll probably come to the biblical answer, which is nothing. He came to heal all that we are. So we're going to look at one story today, but it really encapsulates the movements of healing that you see take place in all of these stories. And if you've encountered the presence of Jesus, you've seen this take place in your own life. So I hope to remind you that Jesus has the power to heal all that you are and to help prepare you for what might come. So the first movement in our healing, When we experience the power and presence of Jesus, we'll see that Jesus brings order to our chaos. Let the mom say amen. A little bit of order into the chaos. Yeah. I think it's neat. In a short while, shortly before his death, Jesus describes himself like a mother chicken to be precise. And he longs to bring his wayward children in. He knows something of the chaos that we're living, and he's trying to show us the order that he will bring to it. I think this is one of the reasons that Luke has the story of the calming of the Sea of Galilee right before this one. The chaos of creation that's disordered, and Jesus calms it down and brings it into order. So Jesus has literally just gotten off the boat. The night before, he calms the storm, and the story picks up in verse 26. He's literally getting off the boat. They arrived in the region of the Gerasenes, across the lake from Galilee. As Jesus was climbing out of the boat, a man who was possessed by demons came out to meet him. For a long time, he had been homeless and naked, living in the tombs outside the town. You see the chaos, right? Imagine, thank you, River. He's fine, it's good. He's amening. He's going to be a preacher. They were up late, crazy storm. Jesus gets out of the boat after a long night of work, and a homeless, naked, insane, demon-possessed man is immediately there confronting him. I have a hard time imagining how terrifying it must be to be homeless. It sounds vulnerable, so uncertain, to spend your life naked. He lives in a graveyard. Did you guys catch that? Did you notice the detail in the story where it said this guy was so dangerous and disruptive that at various times they had chained him to stones? The town? Clearly, he's got spiritual chaos. He's got demons living inside of him. Physical chaos, naked and homeless. Relational chaos, living alone, isolated outside of town. Maybe surprisingly, he shouts in fear at Jesus. He's afraid. He says, "Why are you interfering with me, Jesus, Son of the Most High God? Please, I beg you, don't torture me." We've seen demons know who Jesus is before, which is interesting. One of the realities about being human that I see here, at least that I can relate to, is a lot of us are scared of being healed. In our minds, we might say, of course I want healing. Yes, of course I want to be well. So we don't say things like, I don't want to be healed. But boy, we resist laying down our ways of keeping ourselves safe. It's just a simple way to check that is like, how much do you resist vulnerability? Expressing your own neediness? We don't do that around here. You have to know that when Jesus begins his healing work in your life, there's a good chance it will feel frightening at first. Because there's a way that you've learned to be you that needs to be laid to rest. This man thinks Jesus is going to harm him, not heal him. But the fear's coming from this demon, not the man himself. The demon begs not to be sent to a bottomless pit. I can resonate with that fear. That sounds scary, whatever that is. Is it not interesting that Jesus I don't know, he allows it? He agrees with the demon in the sense that he's like, okay, he grants the demon their request, and he throws the demons into the pigs, and you know the story. The pigs jump off a cliff into the sea, and then bam, the man is set free. The shepherds are afraid. They go run and tell everybody what's happened. And the next time we see this man, look at the shape he's in. In verse 35, it says, a crowd soon gathered around Jesus. They saw the man who had been freed from the demons. He was sitting at Jesus' feet, fully clothed and perfectly sane. Chaos falls into order in the presence of Jesus. We're healed. All we are. An isolated man living in a graveyard is now back within the confines of the town. He's no longer alone. He's around people. The naked man is clothed. Isn't that such a lovely detail? How it's just like, and by the way, he's fully clothed. Where'd those clothes come from? Somebody gave it to him. He's in community now. The demon-possessed man is now free and sane. In the presence of Jesus, your chaos will fall into order. You will be healed. But something difficult often happens. I'm not going to say it always happens, but you have to be prepared because it catches us off guard. The first movement of our healing is Jesus brings chaos to our order. And then, he brings order to our chaos. You all follow me? It's hard doing this, okay? He brings order to our chaos. And then second, and sometimes surprisingly, some people won't like it. I wish I could explain it to you. Maybe your friends can help you understand, but you need to know that there are people in your life right now that benefit greatly from you staying broken. They benefit greatly from you living a disordered, diminished life. Change is scary for everyone, and I will tell you, there is nothing scarier to the people around you than a person set free. A woman or a man pursuing wholeness, living in confidence, and not that braggadocious confidence that's so popular in America, that quiet, steady strength of self. You have to know that should you pursue healing in the presence of Christ, some people around you won't like it. When the townspeople first see the man, remember, he terrorized them. It was so bad they chained him to rocks. And what's their first reaction when they see him? They were all afraid, verse 35 says. They were all afraid. We don't know why they were afraid. We can only speculate. Maybe they were afraid because they remember that they chained him to rocks. And do you think they were just like, hey, pal? Do you think they were saying friendly things to him as he was there, insane, chained to rocks? Maybe they're worried and the tree fell down. That's fine, we'll just leave it. When communion comes, there's a tree here. Does that mean I was about to say something bad? Does that mean I shouldn't say it? Just means the door's open. Okay. Are you about to fix it, Gage, or you just got a snack? Just a snack, okay. Sorry. Well, you just see like one of our most faithful, godliest servants strutting up. What were we talking about? Change, demons, the tree. Oh, right, they were afraid of this guy changing. Okay. Were they afraid that he's going to get back at them because they'd been so mean to him? This could be the American in me. I think they're mad that Jesus just tanked the economy. Do you see that? An agricultural society and a whole flock of pigs just went over the side. And they're like, Jesus, what about the stock market? We don't know why exactly these people are afraid, but we know that Jesus brought order to chaos, and it terrified these people. And then after, verse 37 says, all the people in the region of the Gerasenes begged Jesus to go away and leave them alone, for a great wave of fear swept over them. I will tell you, there is nothing sweeter than being set free. There is nothing more electric, more satisfying, more transforming and powerful than the presence of Jesus. When you taste it, and I know a lot of you have, and you know this, when you get a sense of his nearness, you will change. If you've ever asked the question, what is the Bible's plan for how people change? Do you know how people change in the Bible? They get into the presence of Jesus. Old Testament, New Testament. You guys remember what happened when Moses got into the presence of God on the top of Mount Sinai? It's way cooler if you see what the words actually mean. It said his face was glowing, and he had glowing horns coming out of his face when he came down from the mountain. And how did people respond when they saw Moses transformed? They were afraid. 1 John 3 says that, beloved, we know we're not what we will be, but we know that we will be made like him when we see him, for we will see him as he is. Paul says that we are being changed from one degree of glory to another. How? By beholding the face of God. When you get in his presence, you change. If you've never had it before, feels like lightning in your veins. You feel invincible. You feel a renewed sense of confidence and hope. There's nothing like it. So it can be quite jarring when you are having that experience and you see the bewildered rejection of people around you. I tell you this by way of preparation, so you know what to expect. When you heal, some people won't like it. Let's just give you a couple examples so you can see what I mean. When you learn that you are worthy of love regardless of what you do for other people, when you start believing that you are loved because God has set his affection upon you and you are made in his image, when you start believing you are enough because you are a son or daughter of the living God, you will start saying this very powerful and foreign word in our culture. It's a word called no. So play it out for a second. If you don't know you're loved and you've built your life on you got to do stuff for other people all the time and you chase the wind of other people's approval all the time and you find out that that doesn't work and then you wake up to the reality that you are loved as you are and you're worn out and exhausted and someone says, hey, could you go do this thing for me? And you realize, I don't want to do that. It's not good for me to do that and I don't have to do that. And you look at them and you say, no. They will look at you shocked, disgusted. They'll feel betrayed. What's happened to Frank? What's wrong with him? He used to be so helpful. When you learn it's not selfish or sinful to take care of yourself, Jesus says, what does it profit a man to gain the whole world and forfeit his soul? Is anything more important than your own soul? When you start living like nothing is more important than the health of your own soul, some people won't like it. When you learn you don't have to hide who you really are, you can put your weak foot forward. You can learn how to walk and live like you have nothing to prove. Some people won't like it. And so it can feel quite jarring to be coming alive while the people around you are confused or angry. So know what's coming. There may be a cost. Jesus might throw your pigs in the sea. Let the reader understand. I don't know what it'll be. When you encounter Jesus, he will bring order to your chaos and he will set you free. As you learn to live free, some will reject you, some will be afraid of you, and some will beg you to leave. And a lesson for all of us to learn in this, if you caught it in the story, Jesus doesn't fight it. He doesn't try to win them over. He doesn't make an appeal to them. Oh, you guys don't understand. I'm on a journey. He just, look at verse 37 is so cool. So Jesus returned to the boat and left, crossing back to the other side of the lake. Imagine the disciples. They're like, Jesus, we just did this. We just got out of the boat. And you want to do this long boat ride again? There's a profound lesson for many of us here. Sometimes you need to move on. Sometimes you need to let people go. Did Jesus love the people in that town that begged him to leave? This is not a trick. Yes, thank you, Gage. Did Jesus have something beautiful available to them if they wanted it? Yes, none of these are tricks. Would Jesus welcome their trust if they turned their hearts to him? Yes, of course. But Jesus knew when to leave. He knew when to move on. In Matthew 10, he tells his disciples, hey, go to a town, try once, try twice. If you can't find anybody that'll listen to you, shake the dust off your feet and move on. 2 tries. How many of us have spent decades wondering if I just found a different way to say it to the person? Oh, we just got to try a little bit longer. And Jesus knew when to leave. And it's a lesson many of us need to learn. Frankly, it's a lesson I'm trying to learn. But big picture, in the presence of Jesus, we experience healing in every way. He brings order to our chaos, and some of the people in your life won't like it. And then the third movement. You know this is true already. We've seen it play out in our church. Plays out in nearly every story of healing. He brings order into your chaos. Some people don't like it. And then you have a story to tell. If you weren't here last Sunday, Jonathan Almonte from Compassion International flew up from the Dominican Republic to talk to us about the ministry of Compassion International. And I don't mean any of this disrespectfully. I don't mean any of this critically. He talked for a long time, 45 minutes or something, and he didn't have like this profound moment of Bible insight. You guys remember that? It wasn't like he's like, open your Bible to this verse, and he did this master class in Bible teaching where we were all like, oh my gosh, I never saw that in the Bible before. He had very plain clothes on. Anybody remember this? Very normal looking guy. Wasn't a particularly gifted, passionate speaker. Also preaching in a foreign language, which that was pretty cool. He didn't have any special slides. He had some like fuzzy pictures. What I'm trying to say is there was nothing like overwhelming and impressive about the presentation. And I left on Sunday thinking this was one of the greatest church experiences of my whole life. What did he do? If you missed it, you're like, what did I miss? You missed it. Yeah. He told his story. He told the story of what happens when the living Christ comes into a life. He talked at one point about being so poor as a child that he would get packets of sugar and put it in a little bit of water and drink it, because that was the trick he learned to stop himself from shaking out of hunger. Can you imagine a life where you learn that at 7? The turning point in his life, he said, he was aggressive, he was violent. When he was 12, he got in a fight and he punched a classmate. Punched him so hard he knocked him down. And when the kid hit his head on the ground, he went into a coma. Terrifying moment. And while Jonathan as a child was there racked with guilt, a lady from his local compassion center put this young man's head in her hands and looked at him and said, Jonathan, why do you fight? We love you so much. He said, that's the first time I ever understood the love of God. He says, that's the moment God changed my life. That's when he started going to his compassion center. He got food, he got clothing, he got shoes. Some order emerged out of his chaos. He stopped pursuing life in a gang. How do you think that went? How do you think the gang members enjoyed it? He started pursuing healing and wholeness, and other people didn't like it. And now he's traveling the world telling people what happens in the power and presence of Jesus. This is the pattern. Order into chaos. Some people fuss about it, and then you have a story to tell. This is what happens to the man in our story today. He wanted to stay with Jesus. There's an interesting juxtaposition. The town begged Jesus to leave. This man begs Jesus to stay with him. But Jesus says to him, no. Verse 39, go back to your family. Tell them everything God has done for you. So he went all through the town proclaiming the great things Jesus had done for them. Notice he doesn't just go to his family. He goes everywhere in that town. So you got to know, if you are a Christian, if your trust is in Jesus, if you've encountered the presence of Jesus, you have a story to tell. And that's his invitation for you. Pretty soon, he'll tell his disciples, you are my witnesses. He doesn't say, like, you're my argument winners. You're my apologetics experts. And I've got no problem with apologetics. I think it's really interesting, and I love how bulletproof the Bible is and how consistent intellectually Christianity. Like, I'm for all of that. But in a court trial, who gets called to be a witness? The people who experienced something. And what do they have to talk about? They only have to talk about what they've experienced. And that's it. Many of you are new to your faith here, especially a lot of our students. And, I hear things like, I don't know enough about the Bible. Can't talk about it. It's like, that's true, you don't know enough about the Bible. Very few people know enough about the Bible. I don't have answers to some of the questions my friends might ask. So true. You probably don't. I don't know how to lead them to follow Jesus. That's true. You probably don't. Thanks be to God, you're not expected to do any of that stuff. You have a story to tell, which means you say something like this: I was paralyzed with shame and fear, and then the living Christ came into my life, and now I know I'm loved. What are they going to say? You don't know you're loved. It's like, okay. I was angry, and now I'm not so angry. They cannot fight your story. If you are a Christian, you have a story to tell. Has he brought order to your chaos? How has he clothed you when you were naked? How has he given you a home when you are isolated? How has he healed your body? How has he healed your relationships? Do you see what I'm saying? How has he replaced your fears with hope? I believe what I'm about to tell you as much as I believe anything. There is power in your story because the presence of Jesus is in your story. And when you share your story, people encounter the living Christ, and no one comes into the presence of Jesus and leaves unchanged. There's power in your story because the presence of Jesus is in your story. If you're here and you're hurting and you want this kind of healing, it's available to you. You just got to say something holy like, "Help me, Jesus." Maybe you're desperate enough to, here's a really holy prayer that a lot of people have prayed, and it usually works. You say, "If you are real, show me." What do you have to lose? Try it. If you want this kind of healing, it's available to you. Cry out to the living Christ. Place whatever tiny amount of trust you have in him and watch what he'll do to your life. Jesus heals. He will bring order to your chaos. Some may not like it, but others really need to hear it. And you have a world-changing story to tell. So come to Jesus, whoever you are, and experience his power to heal.